Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to Conversations with My People. Whew, I know we have a lot of energy happening around us. Kids are back to school. We're definitely dealing with all of this politics and all this energy. So I know today I am so excited about my guests. They are both in the hospitality business. One is a VP at the one hotel, and the other one actually is the head of marketing there as well. And I have known this one woman, Donna Rodriguez, for about 25 years. And when I was at Equinox, I met really amazing people, and I had the opportunity to collaborate and work with people. And really, through all that time, I would say maybe there was 3 or 4 people that I felt to myself, wow, if I started a new business, I would definitely want them on my team, because every single thing that they do is just super impressive. First of all, Donna has a work ethic like I don't think I've ever seen anybody ever have. Seriously. And I thought I had an amazing work ethic till I met Donna. And she just even has a positive attitude. Like, I remember sometimes thinking, like, how does that girl work so hard and stay so positive and so connected? I mean, there were just so many layers that I just so admired tremendously about this woman. So I'm really excited to bring her on and have you guys meet her, to meet our community. And then she had worked with Jackie Schwartz at another company that they worked at. And one thing I know, I don't know Jackie as long, but I know one thing. Donna would not bring her if she wasn't made of that same cloth. And the last year that I've had the honor to collaborate and be part of the energy and collaborate with the One Hotels, I see that in Jackie. So I am so excited because I also know that with this pivot and where we're going and the adaptations that we have to make and things that we're starting to realize are actually really good attributes in hiring, both of these women have, like, on steroids. They are so amazing. So I'm so excited, really thoroughly excited for this conversation today. So before we start, let's just introduce Donna and Jackie. Okay. Donna is in the green, Jackie is in the navy. Hi, guys.
Hi, Lavinia. Thank you for having us on. We're
So excited.
This has been, I think I've watched every Conversations with My People throughout the summer, and you were nice enough to have Arash, our president, on, and you had Devin Lebeck on, and so many people that are involved in One Hotels in one way or another. And it's just been, I mean, I think it's been a great thing to have happen throughout this really unpredictable time, you know. It's been really terrific. So congratulations.
So thank you. And we always start, we do a ritual here at Conversations with the People, as you know, where we do 3 big grounding breaths just to get us ready, to get the community ready, to be grounded, to listen, to be able to take in the information that I know is going to be so important for our community here. So ladies, we're going to do 3 breaths. We do 4 breaths in, we hold our breath for 5 counts, and then we exhale. So today, just because I think we all need it, we're going to, our breaths bring in, make them love-filled, soul-filled, joy-filled, grounded-filled breaths. Okay, in we go. Hold your breath, smile. Exhale, ha. Inhale. Hold your breath. Exhale, ha. Inhale. Hold your breath. Exhale, ha. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So like, as you said, we've had on people in your team. We've had on Arash, who was amazing. And, when we had Arash on, we were actually, you guys were just getting ready to open the one hotel, and that was really an exciting time. And when I look back, I think, wow, like, okay, we've come a long way in some ways since then. So we've all been working at home. So I really want to talk about, in what ways have you found that virtual office experience to be different than what you expected? And I mean, I know it's obviously very different than going into the office every day, but what has really like surprised you, where you're like, wow, I didn't realize that that was going to happen? And what was like the most challenging part of that, where you're like, wow, that's challenging? So what would you say?
Beginning of this one. Well, I think that I never really thought it would be 6 months later. So even when we first started, I mean, I'll tell you that I remember my husband came home in an Uber with his giant, he had his laptop, but he had all of his monitors and everything. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, well, we're going to be home for a while. And I was like, we are? We're going to be home for a while? And I just couldn't. I mean, I spent the last 2 years on the road, traveling so much, connected with my team, moving. I thought, I think intellectually I knew that it was going to be a while, but, I was kind of holding my ground at home, where I said, you know what, you take the office to my husband, and my kids were in their rooms at their very well situated desks that we had ready for them. And I put a table in the corner of my bedroom next to the Peloton with a folding chair, because I felt like I'm going to make this temporary. There is no way this is going to be a long-term situation. I'm working with a folding chair. And then a few backaches later, I think everyone was like, can you please order a chair? Like, can you do something about this? Like, where I'm like, I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is a little more permanent. But that's just sort of the, that was some of the realities that were happening. But I think that there was some things that happened with the team very early on, where for me as sort of the team leader, I needed to figure out, like, whoa, I could lose everybody here. That I need to wrap my hands around this, my arms around this, but not be too invasive, because everybody's going through their own stuff, their personal feelings about this pandemic. But at the same time, we have work to do. We closed 6 hotels, and then we reopened 6 hotels, and we did a lot of other work along the way. I mean, thankfully, the development community has really been working through all of this. So there's been other opportunities that were coming up that we had to work on. But it was really an interesting experience for me, where I had to really learn some things about myself. And I was lucky that, I do feel like so many things happen for a reason. And like Jackie, because we have worked together for a long time, even though it wasn't at the same company, like, she was one of the first people to say, like, why don't we take the mornings? It seems like the day is starting later. And that was interesting, because what we realized is that Arash is in Los Angeles, and so are a lot of other principals in our company. And we were always used to sort of working on East Coast time, because they were always traveling all the time. But now that they were stationary, it started to seem like, oh, wait a minute, things were getting cooking around 11:30 New York time. But we're also going until 8 and 9 o'clock at night, because we have calls with Melbourne, Australia, or China, or whatever. So it became like, okay, wait a minute. I think I need to give my team some space in the morning. And I mean, I think I did okay, right? Okay. Sometimes I forget, and I still call it 9, but I said, you know what? I'm not going to bother them. Like, I'm going to give them this time that they can do something personal, whether it's workout or whatever it is that they need to do. And then we'll operate as if we're in Los Angeles. And
Wow, I think that's a great strategy, because at times like this, people really need to have some self-care. Like, it's not sustainable. If, again, like if it was maybe a month, it could have been somewhat sustainable, but now look what's happening, and to come out of the gate and create good behavioral patterns that incorporate that's what makes a team then sustainable. We can all do like the Marines hell week for a week or two,
Right.
but you can't do hell life. Hell life just does not work.
I think that is exactly we also, our team like dispersed quickly. Like I was in Miami, like people left the city. So it was like, we're physically in different places, but we are held accountable for all the work and everything we have to do. So for me personally, like, I think leaving New York also shook me up, where I was like, where's my home? Can I get home? Like, where will I ever be able to go back? Those were like some of the thoughts in the beginning, because everything was just up in the air then. And you almost had to like stifle the feelings just to like get through the day, because like we were writing like closing communications, like we were up with our lawyers until like 11:30 to make sure that we were okay on the legal side, but also on the, like, it was just a crazy,
I would say the first 2 months, I think March and April were a little, and then it became, by May, I said, I had to kind of think about it and say, okay, well, how is this going to work?
Right.
What is this going to look like? She's in Miami, another one was in Maryland, and we were all over the place. We're still producing work. We can do this. I can trust them. So I'm on the, I'm the one that's out there having the meetings with the president or the owner or what have you. But I know that this small and lean group had my back, and they were turning out the work, really.
I mean, you use the word trust, and I love that, because so much in good leadership is, number one, that the person that you've hired has the right attitude, that it aligns with the culture of the company, right? And then that they've been trained properly. And when those two things are in place and are in alignment, then at some point as a leader, we just have to trust. Trust that they're doing the work, they're doing. I mean, I have a young woman who I've mentored for quite a while, and she's with a big company, and her boss, I mean, first of all, this girl, she's like one of us. She works hard, she gets the job done, she's a mover and a shaker, super resourceful, super great work ethic. And her boss, who's, I guess, maybe the president of the area, the division that she's in, he literally like has this mentality: if you're not at work, you're not working. Like, he just has that fear going. So he would have these guys on Zoom meetings, like meeting, back to me. And as her mentor, she said to me, Lavinia, oh my God, like I go from, I'm in 10 meetings a day that this guy's organizing, because I have no time to do my work.
Right.
Just meeting to meeting. And she still has to now call up all the brands and make those connections and be getting the work done. So I think it was a lot of adjustment for a lot of people. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I just keep hearing from people, I am so zoomed out.
Donna definitely, I would say, has made like, of all of everyone on the team, just because of, how for the last, she was at a company for so long, that mentality was definitely like, you're in your office, you're working in your office. If you're not in the office, like, what are you doing, kind of thing. And that is like an old school way. And also, you work hard, play hard from that. But this, I mean, just turns it on its head.
This definitely did turn it on its head for me. But I do think, being the industry we're in, it also prepared us, because we're used to, I mean, it's not an unusual situation that Jackie might be on the road going to Miami for 3 days and then flying to LA for 3 days, where she's working. So we've sort of been used to, you know, there's always someone, right? You went to China last year, and you know what I mean? I was in London like 4 times and still had to be connected to them. So in a way, I think given the nature of the hospitality industry, the hotels that we have and the cities that they're in, I was used to managing from afar, right? But, you know, this for me was different in that, like, I think my motherly sense also came out in that, like, I needed to make sure they were okay.
Right.
You know, that what we were asking them to do, you know, was not on top of it all. Like, they're dealing with a pandemic, and it's hard because, you know, I remember, you know, one of the first people I called when this was happening was Steve Hansen, you know, our dear friend and my old former boss. And, you know, and he said, Donna, the difference is there was a floor, you know, there was 9/12 and there isn't a floor right now, you know, so everyone feels, and for me, that was a good visual because I felt like that's sort of how everybody was behaving. It was like, you don't really feel grounded. And that for me gave me this feeling that, like, I needed to figure out ways to work with everyone separately and, like, look at them. Yes, they're a collective team, but I know when this woman next to me is like
on the verge.
Is on the verge, right? Like she needs sunlight. I mean, she's like a house plant. She needs sunlight.
Exercise.
She needs to go for lots of exercise. Like, and you know, and if you haven't done those 2 things before we're going to get cooking, then I might as well not even start the meeting. Like, do those before you get on with me, you know, which is kind of funny. But even for me, I mean, the amount of miles, like if I didn't have a call, this was something I learned about myself, which is funny. If I didn't have a Zoom that I either needed to be visually on or it was just a call, I started walking. And it has done wonders for me. But walking, where I live, there's lots of hills. It's like practically San Francisco, like crazy hills, you know, like the Palisades. And I probably have walked to, I don't know, Chicago at this point. Like, I mean, something like that. Like if I added it all up on a spreadsheet, you know. But it helped. It helped because I just said, if I sit in this room and look at these 4 walls without getting out and walking, I put my mask on, I had a hood up, and I just walked around with my phone, you know, and waved to neighbors.
I love that because I do believe that we're better in nature, and you can't be inside and be creative. You know, part of like moving and breathing and seeing something different, you know, like I hope you even walk down different streets every day.
Always.
Yeah, because that kind of stuff, like people don't realize that gives you texture, richness. You see things like that's all the kind of stuff that it's like, it helps us pop creatively, you know, because those are where I think the challenges are. If you're going to have your team all spread and they're going to like be in front of this little, you know, 9x12 thing, hours and hours, really think about it. How is the brain going to get stimulated to be creative? And these are times when we have to be very creative. We have to be creative in how we do everything, you know, not creative as in art, but in creative as in problem solving and connecting, because that's the thing is like, it's so important to be able to connect with our people. Yeah. To connect with our teams, you know, and for many of us, it was cultivating new ways of doing that. Because before you'd go into the office and in the morning you'd have those quick meetings. What are you up to? What are you up to? A few words of inspiration, a few people sharing. And then before you know it, that was what was grounding you. The camaraderie, the energy of everyone was also getting everybody. That became like a morning ritual. Even if you didn't call it a morning ritual, it became your morning ritual. So now we had to create these new rituals virtually. but still got people feeling included and, getting inspired and motivated and ready to like make things happen.
Yeah.
The thing that's interesting is that, I always say, like, look at a leader when things are tough, because a lot of people can lead when everything's going and moving and the economy's great and people are coming but real leadership comes in when like you're in the middle of like a pandemic, your industry is dying on the vine like very quickly, it's a calamity, and yet you have to still stay positive and hopeful and make things happen. And while you're also doing things that are making you feel so uncomfortable, you're having to let people go. And like, there's just so many layers, and we're human beings, right? Like, we're human beings. So we feel, we have a lot of empathy and compassion.
And it's interesting because for me in the beginning, I would say like, gosh, I'm so tired, but I didn't have the commute anymore. I didn't have all of these things, but the mental piece of like that responsibility I felt for the people on my team and everything, that I think I had to pivot very quickly. For myself, I said, I have to not do this. Like, I can't go down this road. So what is it going to look like? We have to.
So just tell us, because, I love to help people fill up their toolbox. So like, how did you do that? Like, how did you say, I'm not going to go down that road? Like, how did you shift that? And what road did you go down?
You know what? For me, I feel like it was the getting outside. Like, I was really clear that I needed sunlight. And I don't know if I would have put two and two together if I didn't hear her talking about how she needed sunlight so much. And Jackie was working from Miami, so all of her Zoom, she was sitting outside. So I was just like, God, I want to sit outside. I'm sitting in a room and it's April in New Jersey and it's freaking cold. So then I just started I just put on my sneakers and I'm like, I have to get out. I will do these calls. I will be available until 8 o'clock at night for anybody, but I'm going to start doing them mobily as much as I can. And it helped me mentally. And I think that it helped me figure out what I needed, how I could be better for everyone else.
Right. I love that, because, there is that saying, you can't take care of your team if you're completely depleted.
Right.
If you just have nothing more to give, you're done. Like, there's nothing to give.
One of like the best, I think, like you were like listening to everyone. Like, there was where I really felt like she's here, she's listening, like I'm down here, I'm up today, I'm down tomorrow, I was going through like a roller coaster, and quite frankly, like we all were on the team, and we were really fortunate that in the beginning, like pre-pandemic, we had a very, very close relationship with all of our team, which really helped to further understand each other when this all hit.
Yeah.
But I would say like you just listened and you were like, okay, are you okay? And I'd be like, yeah. And clearly I wasn't. So she'd be like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not.
Or we do a Zoom and I would say, Jackie, call me when this call's over.
Like I have like my ripped sweatshirt on, and half my hair was sticking out of my,
But what I love here is that the fact that you guys could be, so often in the workplace, everybody is just trying to look perfect. They're trying to look good, and they got it held together, and I got this nailed, and, and let's face it, that's not real where like magic happens. Like, the magic happens in that being able to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And say what really is so that then actually you can move. Because what happens is when people are so tight, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, they just, at some point they're going to break.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also what really helped is transparency. And I hope I was able to push that down so Arash was, I will give him, a lot of kudos in that he was very communicative. And in some ways he jokes, he said, I talk to you guys more now than I did before the pandemic, because we have very regular, whether it's executive committee or group calls where he's been very honest about the state of what's happening, but he's also just very positive about the comeback. So, you know, I think people feed off of that. And for me, I tried to take that and then push it down to my team and say, here's what's happening. You know, there have been X amount of layoffs that are going to have to happen. And here's how I think we can stay intact, you know, and this is what we're going to have to do to make that happen. And, you know, and just be really honest about it. And I think that, for me, like that was great to have that happen for me as a, you know, I think he was very clear, and then it made me make sure that I was able to be.
So that kind of goes into the next question, is that there are definitely things that we're learning about ourselves, and we're learning about our brand, and maybe ways of doing things that we wouldn't have done before, that we're realizing, wow, this is actually positive. Like, we're going to put that in the keep that going as a ritual, or as the way we, you know, behave in business. So what are a couple of the things that you've noticed that were changed and that you probably will continue doing when things shift back into a more normal situation?
I'd say our like start off for the weekly, like for the week with our check-ins with the team, even though we always had, like Donna has like an open door policy with her office, it was always like a flooding of people coming out of it every morning. And that was really nice. But now to know, like, you know, every week that goes on, you're like, wait, am I still in the pandemic? Is it still happening? But when we start off and we get on the phone all together and it's even like Monday early afternoon. So like we're able to organize ourselves in the morning, which is great. And then we get on and it's like, it doesn't feel as overwhelming to start the week anymore. And I think that is really, it gives me peace of mind and also helps to keep us organized and prioritize, because, you know, priorities are shifting so quickly, especially as like we're continuing to open up new hotels. So that to me is something that I hope sticks.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we've had to let go of some of our agencies, our external agencies that we worked with, whether it was, you know, a graphic agency or a social media agency. And we brought a lot of the tasks in-house, and in some respects it's thriving. And we're seeing that some of the time that maybe we spent explaining what we want to the agency, we're just now doing. So I'm not saying I'm never going back, because I don't think that's realistic either. I mean, it seems to work when you have, you know, 5 half-open hotels and you're opening another one. I don't know if it would work at post-pandemic occupancy that we, you know, knock wood, hope will return. But I think that there's definitely systems that we had to put in place as we work together separately, as we work with all of the hotels that we had to put in place. And I think that in some ways, you know, there was some cleanup in systems that were put into play through this pandemic, through the summer, that I feel like will really help when business levels do come back. You know, it was kind of like the rainy day stuff, like you know, like, oh gosh, someday I'll make that photo album, or I'll make that scrapbook or whatever, and it never really happens. All the stuff is in a box to do it. And, you know, we were able to actually do it in some respects, you know, like clean up the drive that was out of control and nothing was labeled, and, you know, and organize how we get information from the field, because for us, we're support for all of these hotels.
Right.
So we had to then go to the hotels and say, like, here's a form we'd like you to use when you request something. Whereas we were moving at such a million miles an hour, even though it was in the back of our mind, like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we gave them a form? But it just never happened.
Right.
So now we were able to put a lot of those things into play, which I think I'm excited to see where that will take us when we do reach business levels again that are back.
Yeah, I see a lot of that, like you said, in everything. I see it in my own household. I see it in the way I'm working with people. Like you definitely get down like to the essentials, the priorities, and like, you know, like, I don't know, like we've cut fat everywhere, right? Like everything has just been chop, chop, chop. And then you notice like, and again, the slogan I always live by is that we have to become responsible for ourselves. So the more we become responsible for ourselves, you know, and then that goes into our teams being responsible and being accountable. It just makes things, and that really comes from impeccable communications. So those forms are really just communications, right? You give it, we give you this, you give it back. And I love that. But let's talk a little bit about like what you've learned during this pandemic about people. Because one of the things I've noticed is that that during this time, there might be different things if I was hiring people that I would look at today. My filter might be a little bit different going through this. Have you seen anything like that where you feel like, wow, these are going to be attributes that I'm really going to look at closely because I've learned from this situation?
Yeah, totally. Sure. I'd say, I mean, my job description now versus pre-pandemic.
What's your job description?
I don't even know. I mean, I had a job description before, but it is not that now. I'll tell you that now. It's very different. For better or for worse, it honestly, like, I like shifting to different things. That is, I don't like just staying in like one lane the whole time. So this was kind of nice for me in a sense. Like I definitely adapted to it, but I would say for people looking for jobs or even like once we're able to hire again, not just the people that we've laid off, but even more, like flexibility is going to be key. Whether that's from, you know, being able to work from home or also just having flexible work hours, just knowing that like we joke and we say like the marketing team is a 24-hour organization because like we have East Coast where someone's in Central Time, you know, someone's in Mexico right now. We have West Coast, like we can pretty much deliver anything at any time across the globe, which is awesome. But I think is going to be a new expectation, not just for people in this industry, but for people across all different industries.
Yeah.
I love that because I do think that, you know, there's that saying, people don't like change. Well, I mean, I always say adaptation is an entrepreneur or a business person's best superpower. And being able to adapt is definitely change. So like getting through that, because that's really where the flexibility is, that people can wear a lot of different hats, that, you know, people can, you know, again, their shoulders. I used to say at Equinox, or really anything, consulting jobs that I did, like we have to be able to have very broad shoulders. Mm-hmm. You know, and be able to wear a lot of different hats and be able to communicate, you know, what our needs are, ask for help when we need it, be able to know how to work alone and get things done, be resourceful, you know, be able to become self-disciplined. You know, I do think that that's a big one right now, is that a lot of people, or I've seen it with a lot of young people, they don't know how to self-correct. You know, where they can self-discipline, really create good behavioral patterns. They kind of needed that to be at work by 8 o'clock until 6 o'clock. And then, you know, whereas now they have to do that on their own. They have to have the discipline to not start, you know, getting on the internet, to not start getting on social media on their Instagram. Like it takes something. So I think you also, you know, need people that have that level of discipline.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you that I remember when this whole thing started, I said, I'm not turning the television on in the morning because I will get sucked in. And next thing I know, it'll be 10, 11, 12 o'clock, and I'll have watched CNN the entire morning or have it playing behind me. And I just said, I never watched the news in the morning before I left for work. I'm not going down that road because if I go down it, it's going to be a rough one
It's a black hole.
And, but just to get back to what you were saying about that kind of changes, I think that the people are going to have to really look at what their we talk about job descriptions, right? But I'd like to say that they're more just kind of loose guidelines. if I had to say, very early in the pandemic when we were working from home, there's this great guy, Pete, who handles our social media and is very creative and works with us. And he's just been a terrific member of our team. I mean, really, really outstanding. And we had to write something. Remember, there was like some letter or something that had to be done, some communication, and he wrote it because we were all like doing a million things, and then it got approved very quickly and easily by our owner. And I said, are you kidding me? I have had copywriter after copywriter, and he was sitting right there all along, and he wrote something that he changed one word on, and now he's the writer, tag you're it. Guess what? You're the one who has to write it. And, but I think that he's grateful for that because it only made him more valuable, in the end. It's as we keep growing, it's like, oh, well, he's got that additional skill set that I don't even know if we would have discovered. But so that was amazing. And I think that those sorts of things come out, and I think that what's really been interesting for me is you see the people that you would want with you in a burning building, and then you see who would not be the one that I would follow down this, the one that says, take this stairway, and you're like, nah, I'm gonna trust my gut. I'm going down the other stairwell.
Yeah.
It's interesting because that really comes out, and there's been a few people that have surprised me. Both.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So I want to just talk a little bit about the travel and the hospitality business, because of course, that it's, I know there was even an article, I believe in the New York Times, saying how hard the hotel industry has really been hit and what this is going to look like. And what are you guys really seeing? And where do you think, what's going to stick? And where do you think it's going?
Interestingly enough, we have, as a super small hospitality group, we've been able to act really quickly, which is something that, the larger companies in the world don't have the benefit of taking advantage of. So I think that was great because we were able to see what works here. We opened South Beach first, and we implemented our safety and health program. And, there were some things when we opened Brooklyn a month later that we just had to drop. Mm-hmm. And we had to say, this just doesn't work for this property, but we were able to do it quickly. So having, your small operations and very lean and super valuable operations team, I think was really important there. And then seeing how they were reacting to guests too, because our guests were different. Our guests were the people that were driving to the hotels now versus flying across the country or across the continent to come. It's in South Beach, we see South America be a huge market during the summertime because of the seasonality of it. And we didn't see that obviously this year, but we saw a lot of locals. When we first opened, we saw a lot of Northeast people coming, but this idea of people wanting to take 2 to 3 days for themselves, really take it in and let me book a massage. Let me, let me eat at the hotel. Let me eat outside at the hotel. Mostly we were seeing people leave the hotel for meals, but now people just want to soak in this amazing staycation experience to feel re-energized, relaxed, and just get away from their home life a little bit. And that has been, I think, will stick. because
Yeah,
I call them drivecations.
yeah,
Because everybody is now going to places where they can drive. It's a drivecation, like, but I am hearing, like, I'm hearing of people, talking about rebooking weddings that they had to cancel. I mean, are you getting some phone calls with people?
we are. And I feel like generally there's like a hopeful energy out there. Like it feels very hopeful. That's what the sales team is communicating to us, that there's, and there's a real energy that we're in this together. We're going to figure this out. And I think that the clients feel that, the vendors feel that, the locations, whether they're our hotels, and I think that with, for us, we very quickly, we were speaking with the Columbia School of Public Health, and we were looking at, any place that we could get our hands on some guidance about what's going to keep our guests safe. And what we were happy to find out is that, many of our hotels already have like MERV 13 and above filtration, because of the mission of One Hotels. We were already doing a lot of things that are now becoming commonplace. So that was awesome. So it wasn't like we were like, oh my God, we have to install a whole new filtration system or air conditioning system, because we were already doing hospital grade. So that was great. And then we just looked at, quite frankly, like how we can clean and how we can make the guest feel safe when they're here.
I think that's a real key, because I've been hearing people who are like going back to gyms. Our gyms aren't open in LA, but people that are going back to gyms in other areas. And what they're saying is, I can hear it. The people who are going to the gym like 2 and 3 times a week, and they see them like doing what they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
Then they're like, I feel good here, because every day I come and it's the same. They're taking the temperature, they're doing this. And the ones who are not seeing them doing it are like, they said the showers weren't open, but the last time I went, I saw people taking showers and they're kind of looking the other way. And even though that sounds like great, like, oh, okay, they're letting us take showers, but the message the members getting is, oh, they're dropping it.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know. Like, that scares me a little bit. Like, they want to see, like, what I'm hearing from people is they want to see that they're sending out a letter. This is what we're doing. And every time they come, they're doing it. That gives them the confidence and the trust that you're going to really keep them safe.
Yeah.
So, and I know that you guys are doing that.
We since the minute we closed, we started working on these protocols for reopening. And what do protocols look like? What does the protocol look like? And, it's in many ways, it's been a really interesting experience, because you have to put yourself, because we're working from home, you're kind of putting yourself through each experience. Like, I've produced a gazillion events in my career, and I'm sitting there going like, okay, well, how would I do an event? How would I produce an event in the time of COVID? Okay, well, we're not going to do buffets, that's for sure. Okay, that, and we created a task force for to develop the protocol. So, and I felt like we were able to consult with enough of other companies and outside sources, and the industry itself is not in competition about these protocols. And I think that's been another thing that's been really, really great. It's like, if if we're doing something, or if, I don't know, Hilton's doing something, like, I hope they adopt what we're doing, or vice versa, because all it can do is just give more faith in the industry.
Well, yeah. And also, if one closes and they say the Hilton all of a sudden has tons of COVID, the next thing you know, your governor's going to come in and close all the hotels.
Exactly.
So everyone gets penalized in times like this. So that's why it really is important that the information is shared. And, collaboration is really, I believe that's where magic happens, and as long as you know who you are, you do the best that you do every day. Like, that doesn't take away from your brand. That just elevates the whole industry. And at a time like this, we can only elevate, because if it goes down, it's going out, right? So it's really about, that's one of the things that's so beautiful right now in so many areas. It's all about elevation. And there's such a frequency and a vibration when we're all working together to elevate.
Yeah.
And really the elevation right now is about working together to keep us safe.
Yeah.
And it's so there's something really magical about that. So
yeah, and I think now, it definitely feels like we're in that, at least in New York, like that fall back to school mentality, where I said to everyone, and this was the other thing, everyone's like, are you going back to the office? Are you going back to the office? What's happening? Because everyone's taking everyone, a friend that works at Chase or a friend that works for a fashion company. Everyone wants to know what everyone's talking about doing. And then finally, we haven't had like a mandate go back to the office, but for us, our collaboration over Zoom has worked out so well that sitting distant in an office environment is not really going to up that game any further. So what we started to deciding internally was, let's rip this Band-Aid off very slowly. Like, no, we don't all of a sudden have to be going in 5 days a week and what have you. Let's look at 1 or 2 days a week. Let's go to the hotels. Let's start to feel what it feels like to be in the hotel. So today we went to the hotel. We said, let's work from here today. Came here this morning. We are experiencing the property. We're watching the guests in the lobby. We're watching people get checked in. We're looking at the behavior of the guest. And that's something that I don't get sitting at home, and I also don't get it sitting in an office. So that I think will change more. I think I can see that my team will want to be in the field a little bit more when this all is said and done. But I don't think it has to be an all or nothing. I think that.
Well, I think everything is going to be a hybrid. I think that's one of the things that we're going to see that's going to stick, is that people will probably be working, 50% home, 50% in an office space. I really feel like, and I think there's some good in the both, first of all, to not have to do a commute, an hour and a half for many people, of an hour and a half there, an hour and a half home, that's 3 hours. To be able to work from 8, or from 9 until 5, hardcore, get the work done, and then be able to have another layer of life. Like, I just see all these amazing things, that hobbies that people are doing that are, again, adding texture to who they are, adding richness to who they are. And that person who has more texture and more richness, they bring that energy into the work environment. And that is, instead of a bunch of people that are completely energetically depleted, because by the end of the work week, you have to practically pick them up off the ground. Because think about it, that's 15 hours of extra commuting. Mm-hmm. That's a lot. What if you could just have those 15 hours to do something that feels good and adds a vibration to you, and a creativity and a joy? That's the person that works for the company. Dang, I want my people to have that. I know that, to me, when I have people that are soul-filled, love-filled, creative-filled, joy-filled on your team, you're going to get the best out of them. But when you have people that are in hell week and working, work more, work harder, work more, it's who do you get? It's like, it's horrible. You get like crumbs of creativity because they're like, they have nothing to give. Like, that's what it feels like we're going to learn from this. Like, founders and CEOs are going to realize, like, when we have people that are expansive and feel good and are alive, and even in the middle of a pandemic, like, I can't tell you how many people I see them and I'm thinking, oh my God, you look 10 years younger. And they're like, Lavinia, I'm sleeping. Like, I'm not, like, I'm listening to music. I'm outside working in my backyard in nature. Like, it's like those little things. Their skin is glowing. Their eyes look brighter. Again, their ideas are so much riper and so much juicier. So I do think we are gonna see that. I think we're gonna see that, and then it's gonna be integrated, and then our environments will be so much healthier, our work environments.
Yeah.
Anyway, you guys, we're almost done. I am so excited. I'm going to be doing I'm going to do a retreat at the end of October. I've recently gone into this group called the Unicorn Group, and they've rented out a place, but I am like, okay, first of all, next year we're going to do it at one of the 1 hotels, because that's where my loyalty is, because I love your spaces. But I'm thinking, like, you know what, if this goes well, I'm going to talk to you guys, because I definitely want us to do a retreat. I'm getting so much feedback from people saying, please, when do you think? And I'm like, you know what, well, we're going to figure out how to do it safe so that we could do something. So I'm so excited. I love what you're doing. I love you guys. Keep doing what you do.
Wow.
And, okay. Thank you. You guys, next week I have on Nicole Lepin. She's a financial boss bitch, amazing financial girl. She's got all these best-selling books, How to Find Your Superpower, Boss Bitch, Rich Bitch. She's got it. All right, guys, see you next week. Thank you.